Okay, so you've hit on one of my favorite topics. Quest loves game parties, and specifically the Uno parties that happened early last year. A couple months after those parties, I was looking through the pictures for them for whatever reason and just noticed there were some really sus things in those pictures. A lot of just weird behavior, and they seemed really staged. So I made a video about it. Went not really viral, but like got some attention. And Questlove commented on my video. And he said, now cipher it. Now, a cipher obviously can mean like decipher it, decode it. But a cipher in rap also means for people to like collaborate and come together. And I genuinely think that's what this whole thing is. I've put a lot of the pieces together, but there are a million people that are discovering different parts. Like there's a creator who discovered every single thing that I did about this like collaboration with music artists and all of this stuff, but from the Bay side, from the Beyonce side. And they figured all this out, and then they found me through my videos and realized that we were saying the same things, just with two different artists. I also found people who had discovered the same thing with like the guys from One Direction, that they were doing the same stuff. Since the Kendrick Drake thing, there is another creator who has discovered the same thing, but through the Kendrick side. And they're all saying the same thing, seeing the same patterns, seeing the same kind of stuff. These specific artists are working together to expose the industry, to change the cultural mindset, to make a difference, but they're doing it in a very like performance art way through art, social posts, music, visuals, all kind of written media, all kinds of stuff. And more people are noticing that something is happening. I've seen several posts from people who are unconnected to any of this say like there's something happening in the music industry, or I've seen people say like Taylor is bringing people together for some reason. They just haven't pinpointed what yet. I mean, call me Cassandra. But although I had started talking about this back in April of last year, and there were a couple other creators talking about similar things as well, what really solidified that we were on the right track, that something was happening, was Questlove commenting on those posts. Nobody could tell me I was crazy and reaching anymore, which they did try to on that exact video until he commented. But the interesting thing about these photos is there's just so much to them. From the shirts that they were wearing, which were all artists who have passed, all dead artists, which is when I became absolutely convinced that the dead artists were a huge part of this. That was last August, and that's why for the last year you've seen me talk about Avicii, Tupac, Biggie Smalls, Kurt Cobain, Syd Barrett, and so many more. And Mac Miller, of course, my fave. We've also talked about Prince and Michael Jackson, but Questlove is a professor of Prince. He literally teaches classes about Prince at NYU, where Taylor got her honorary doctorate. First party pictures had several people from SNL, Taylor's backup dancers, Gigi Hadid, Cara Delevingne, Jason Sudeikis. How do you say his last name? Anyway, lots of different people. Bun B was there, and magicians, and they had all of these specific foods and set up staged photos and pointing and numbers, and like I said, dead artists on the shirts. And he had this caption which had different letters like capitalized and was like a message. One of my friends, Nikki, helped me decipher the code, and part of it was talking about Twitch and again reinforcing the dead artists. Well, since then, they've had many different parties. There have been Clue parties, there are Wordle parties, and always with a very interesting and eclectic group of people. Like Meg Thee Stallion has been there, Amber Rose was there, and then she went on to endorse Trump, so that was really weird. Julia Stiles was there, you know, from like the 90s movies, where she starred with Heath Ledger, another dead star. Weird Al Yankovic. A million different people, and I can make more posts about those if you want. I love looking at and decoding those pictures. But that really solidified for me and the other people who were following along at that point, because we all started following basically everybody who attended those parties or who was like tagged in those parties. And if you started paying attention to the posts, because I started a new Instagram literally purely just for this Under the Pink. And so basically the only people I was following were people from these parties, and you start to see the patterns really quickly. So then every single post would be like referencing the same thing on the same date or the same period of time. All of a sudden there would be like roses in every post for like a week, and then there wouldn't be roses anymore, you know? When those are the only people you're following, it's easy to see the patterns really quickly. And so if you hear me when I'm like talking about this stuff and I'll say, oh, this is something that comes up really often, that's what I mean. It's something that has been used as a symbol of some sort. Or there are some symbols that are used continuously. And a lot of those are symbols and things that we associate with Taylor. And so I call them the New Romantics, and I have a video on my New Romantics playlist that explains why I call them that, but it's based on the original Romantics who did the same thing, got together to use art and media to shift the cultural mindset and politics and all of that kind of stuff. And then the New Romantics in the 80s who were trying to shift, not really in a concentrated effort, but trying to shift the norms and ideas between like gender and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I call them the New Romantics. And it's also been called Journey to the Moon, coined by my friend Faith, because of the same kind of patterns and stuff that she clocked 2 years ago. And then did you see the VMAs just the other day? But the really fascinating thing about it is that I think these specific artists, I'm talking about Taylor, Beyonce, Kendrick, and like Harry Styles and like the One Direction fans, specific fandoms all have been trained to pick up on like Easter eggs. Kendrick's fans know that every single line he writes will have like 3 different meanings. So they're deep diving those lyrics, and it's not surprising to them at all when there's like all of these references packed into one bar that he writes in like just a couple minutes, which is insane. He's so freaking talented. To Taylor, who has trained her audience to look at every single thing she does, but including clothing pieces, and she will wear things to reference things that are coming or like as part of the story. And the One Direction fans do the exact same thing, which is also why a lot of people think that Harry and Taylor are still together, because they both do this, but they're not the only ones. And of course, Beyonce's fans, I didn't realize that Beyonce fans were basically the same as Swifties with looking at the deeper meaning with things. Beyonce is just not seen as much like as Taylor is, but her art and her visuals and all of that stuff is packed with meaning, and that was demonstrated beautifully with Cowboy Carter and all of the deep, rich history that was in every line of that record. Amazing. But they've spent years cultivating these audiences and training us all to pay attention to every single thing that we're doing. And there's a real push right now for fans, not stans. Listen to other artists. Lots of collaborations. Lots of talk about toxic fandoms. You're not going to get the bigger picture if you're only listening to one artist, if you're in a monoculture. But if you're listening and paying attention to many different artists, or watching many different movies, or many different TV shows, or reading many different books, it's so clear. And the game parties are a perfect example of this. The most mishmash group of people ever from all different parts of entertainment and entertainment business. J.J. Abrams was there, and they're all coming together to play games and to send a bigger message. They just need more of us to pay attention. If you want to follow along on this whole journey, make sure to follow and check out my podcast, Under the Pink, where I can get you into the history and how this all started. I took an unofficial break for the summer, but I'm back. So new episodes coming this week. Bye.